Hi, I'm Nicola. Now, today I want to share my personal story, my own health journey, because I think it's a really important part of who I am and why I do this channel, Freedom from the Desk. So, my health story is an interesting one. So, at the moment, at the time of recording this video, I'm 55 years old and I consider myself to be in quite good health. Now, that wasn't always the case because in 1988 I was 18 years old and I had a normal childhood, normal upbringing, great family, didn't really want for anything, normal kid stuff, thought I was hard done by, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is I had a really good upbringing and no issues there. Now, when I was 18, I was literally in a cafe and I stepped off a bar height type stool in a cafe. And I lost pretty much all of the feeling from my kind of waist, hip area down. And not like I had a loss of sensation, it's just I had the loss of ability to actually walk, and the pain was kind of quite unbearable. So I went through many hospital admissions, and me being me and my character at the time, I very much tried to prove the world was good. And nothing to see here, this is just a little niggly back pain. And that continued on for many, many, many years, where I lived in this world of denial because I wasn't accepting that something was wrong. In saying that, there was a lot of toing and froing between doctors and hospitals and things like that. They threw pain drugs at me and it made no difference. If anything, it actually probably exacerbated the condition. And it gave the disease, which I found out I had, 4 years later, a chance to actually advance. So we fast forward 4 years later, in and out of hospital, multiple hospital admissions, lots of painkillers and drugs to try and suppress what was going on. They didn't do a lot of testing, which looking back was a surprise at the time, but anyhow, hindsight's a wonderful thing, as they say. And so we got to 1992 and I was diagnosed with a type of arthritis called Ankylosing Spondylitis. Now, essentially that's bamboo spine. So some of you may notice that I have very limited movement in my neck when I'm talking in my videos. That's because I have fused vertebrae in my neck, and I also have fused areas in my hips as well. But that comes later. So essentially I was tested, and after a sort of massive fall from grace, I was talking to my doctor and I just said, this is just bullshit, I can't do this anymore, this isn't in my head, something is going on. And so anyhow, he sent me off to a specialist. We did this test and I came back with a gene marker which was called HLA-B27 positive. The only positive thing in my life at that time, I might add. And so, of course, working with a rheumatology specialist then led to a lot of hospital visits, a lot of specialist visits, and a lot of testing of medications. So again, the disease had really had a wild time in my body, and it had a chance. The inflammation levels in my body were just off the scale and scarily high scores. And so a lot of experimentation came with drugs, because no specialist or no doctor is going to go straight to the top shelf of a drug. They want to try all the ones all the way through to make sure that you're getting the right drug to fix the problem. And we travel through a lot of years in the future now, so probably I'm going to skip forward about 10 years, and a lot of medications failed, a lot of medications made me a lot worse. The disease relapsed a lot of times, so it would be suppressed by some drugs and then it would find a gap and it would just reignite again, and the inflammation levels would just go nuts in my body and I was rendered useless. And for me, I still hadn't accepted what was actually happening. I hadn't accepted that, one, I had a form of arthritis. I was 22 years old and I had a debilitating form of arthritis that, in my mind, was affiliated to people that were a lot older than me. So I really fought it. I fought it hammer and tooth, right? Denial, denial, denial the whole way along. And with that came the disease advancing again, because I wasn't getting medications that I needed. And a lot of it was internally within myself as well. So I was escaping within this coping mechanism of living in this world of denial, that there was actually something wrong with me, because it took away my ability to work. So therefore that was sort of something that I linked my identity to. If I couldn't work, then I was nobody. So these big mountains and troughs came, and emotions and things. And then basically about 10 years, 15 years later, I had this massive, which can only be described as a breakdown, where I just totally lost my shit one day at a random person at a petrol station where I was working, because they turned around to me and said, "Oh, you've got a sore neck, dear." And that was it. The fire was lit. This poor little old lady got, stripped down, and I apologised to her, of course, and my boss, who at the time was my boyfriend, came out and took me out the back because he'd seen what had happened. And that in turn sort of led me to seek help outside of the frame of the medical system. And I'm not here to bag out the medical system. In a lot of respects, it's really great. They give you a lot of tools, but they don't look at the root cause of actually what's going on behind something. They don't look at actually what may be causing the symptoms. They just look at the sticking plaster approach of trying to fix the problem, and you're on your way. And as I've discovered, preventative maintenance, whether it's for your health, whether it's for your mind, whether it's for, whatever you're trying to achieve in life, through a business or working in the online space or personal relationships, looking at the root cause of something is a lot more beneficial than putting a sticking plaster on it and hoping that it heals. So that's probably the first part of my health journey. And I don't want to ramble too much, but I think it's a really important story to tell, in that when I sort of just continued on the drug line and we kind of found something that sort of balanced things out, still wasn't perfect. There were still big seasons where I went through massive inflammations. I had massive problems with my knee, and I had oodles and oodles of cortisone injections, which again just masked the problem. And it wasn't a very happy time. I reinvented myself so many times through work. That's how I moved from working in sort of a very front-line position into administration and working behind a desk, because, my brain was still working at the time, but my body wasn't working so crash hot. So I sort of reinvented myself work-wise. Had this massive fall from grace, had this massive breakdown. I actually spoke to and dealt with the Arthritis Foundation in New Zealand, and they were absolutely amazing. Cannot recommend any organisation enough if anybody is struggling with something that they may be moving through, whether it's health related, whether it's mental health. Just reaching out for help is half of the problem when we're suffering ourselves. And then we moved away from New Zealand, we moved to Australia, and many, many years passed, lots of ups and downs, and I'd looked at a lot of alternative therapies, I want to call it, and they all come with quite a big price tag. They all come with an element of faith, my terminology, behind it in regards to things, but nothing really kind of stuck for me. And a lot of things helped, but nothing really was having that sort of umbrella approach to that I was looking for. And one day I went to a free seminar around a lady that was encouraging people to do her coaching course. She was obviously selling something around the concept of how food can basically pretty much heal your life in regards to what you're actually putting into your body, what you're actually exposing yourself to through chemicals, through actually what's in food to begin with. And she had a real focus on obviously the gut, celiac disease and glutens and things like that. But anyhow, I went along to this free night. Long story short, signed up for the program, dragged my husband along. We were both so far out of our comfort zone it wasn't funny. And dare I say it, the rest is history. My story now reigns around sharing the information that I've learned around what's actually in our food that shouldn't be in our food, the shit that is in our food, the chemicals, the numbers, the letters, the colours, the flavourings, and sharing that message around how food, or lack of it in today's society, actually has the amazing ability to heal yourself. So I'm talking about going backwards, going back to, that 50s housewife sort of scenario in your head of prepping food that doesn't magically come out of a can, doesn't magically, there's nothing wrong with canned goods, some canned goods. It's what man has actually added to them. So going back to basics, going back to actually creating what we eat, thinking about what's in our food, reading, becoming an avid label reader, as boring as all get out as that is, it's so very important with what we consume in today's world. So that's my story. It's in a nutshell. I'll be sharing more about this, but essentially I have been able to reverse all medications that I'm on. I still have an infusion every 6 weeks for my arthritis, because my arthritis is not going away. Unfortunately, I've lost movement in my neck and I can't get that back, but I can maintain it. I can keep the wolf at the door. And I do that through zero manufactured or artificial sugars, zero modified things that don't belong in food, like all your starches and all your thickeners and all your flavor enhancers and all the sweeteners. The sweeteners would have to be the biggest one. Sugars are, just makes my blood boil. And when I say sugars, I'm not talking about natural sugars that you find in fruit and like maple syrup, good quality maple syrup. I'm talking about artificial sugars manufactured by man, that are literally in every conceivable product on the market today. So I've been really lucky. I've teamed up with 2 great organisations that I work with in regards to my health. One is obviously my amazing water ionizer that I have in my home, because water is such a pivotal part of your health and well-being. And the other is a wellness company that I choose to buy my products through, that aren't affiliated with the big 2 corporates that rule this world. And they manufacture their goods with an open ingredients policy, and we're talking toilet cleaners, toothpastes, mouthwashes, shampoos, conditioners, cleaners, glass cleaners. They have the most amazing products. So I'm slowly continuing my health journey through these amazing companies that provide these amazing products. And if anybody wants to know about those products, please reach out. I'm not here to talk about those today. They're just part of the journey that I am on. But my biggest passion around sharing this video today would be talking about our mindset, our way that we look and move through life in business and in life in personal and in health and in wellness. And the core takeaway from anybody that's watching this today would have to be what is in our food, what shouldn't be in our food, and how to start righting those wrongs for yourself if you're looking at trying to improve your health and wellness. So I hope you enjoyed hearing my story. I wanted to make it quite quick and succinct. There's a lot more to it, and I'm going to be sharing a lot of it over on social media as well, and obviously my handles are down below in the comments if you're wanting to follow along. I do share a lot of recipes. I do talk about food a lot. I do talk about what is in our products a lot, trying to educate people around that. The subject isn't for everybody, I get that, and if it's not for you, thanks for watching this far. And you will come back to the subject whenever you're ready. Have an awesome day, everybody. I love sharing my story. And if anybody wants to know about anything in relation to more around probably the food and ingredients and that we're consuming within our home and toxic things that are actually in our products, then please reach out. I'm happy to do and speak about anything that you may be interested in knowing. It can be the simplest of questions, it can be the most complex of questions. I'll be completely transparent and open in regards to what I know and what I don't know, and what I've found out for myself. And I always do a lot of due diligence when I'm looking at this. I'm not out to demonize anybody, but at the end of the day, the products that we see on our shelves in supermarkets are not designed to heal us. They're actually designed to make us ultimately sicker, very insistently, very slowly over long term. I'm a big thinker when it comes to the compound effect. So I'm going to leave it here for today. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I look forward to sharing more in the future. Have a fantastic day.